The goal is to have an experience, to be in the experience of the unknown. Is math really the outcome here? Or is it learning to trust yourself when you don't know what to do? It's okay to listen and to breathe and to ask for help. And what do I learn when I get it wrong? This isn't who you are. Your test score is not who you are. This is a way for you to get to know yourself.
Hi, I'm Vanessa, aka The Math Guru, and you're listening to Math Therapy, a podcast that explores the root causes of math trauma and the empowering ways we can heal from it. Whether you think you're a math person or not, you're about to find out that math people don't actually exist, but the scars that math class left on many of us definitely do. Oh, and don't worry, no calculators or actual math were involved in the making of this podcast. Okay, let me ask you something. What if math didn't have to be just about getting the right answer? What if it could actually help you connect to something bigger, like your intuition or your creativity, your true essence, or even your soul? Well, today I'm talking to Rebecca McLeod, an artist, intuition expert, and generally magical human being who has one of the coolest perspectives I've ever heard about how we can experience and engage with math. I met her while I was in Indonesia this winter, and I just had to have her on the pod. The first of 2 bonus episodes we're sharing with you this month. Today, you'll hear us talk about how intuition belongs just as much as logic in the math classroom, what sacred geometry is and how it can help us connect with math on a spiritual level, and what happens when we stop pressuring students and start inviting curiosity. We also get into how fear shows up in learning and how to tell the difference between fear and intuition, which is actually so important because most of us have been taught to ignore both. If you've ever felt like math just wasn't for you, or you've had this gut feeling there's more to it than memorizing formulas, this episode is gonna blow your mind. Also, if you're a longtime listener, you're probably thinking, what is even going on with this podcast? Episodes are dropping in a random fashion, which I cannot comprehend. And you're right, but I have a surprise for you guys. We've been working behind the scenes to turn this podcast into something much bigger and more consistent. I'll tell you more at the end of this episode.
Rebecca, hi, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, this is so cool because I have not done an in-person interview since our first season, and it's so cool to just talk to someone in person. And actually, I was just thinking about this today. I was like, we just met randomly on the steps of a coffee shop in Bali. Mm-hmm. Okay, and where are you from, originally?
I'm from Halifax.
Another Canadian in our midst, 2 Canadian girlies in Bali. I love that for us.
Yeah. There's a feeling when I meet a Canadian. There's just a soft feeling of home.
So I wanted to have you on because I remember you came up to me a few weeks ago and you were like, oh, I hear you do work with math trauma. And you said you read Vedic astrology charts, correct? And that you know how to see that in a chart.
I do. I mean, primarily I was looking at my own experience with math and using the tools that I have to just look back and say, oh, I have a better understanding of what happened with me and math over time, because it definitely changed.
Was there a way that math was being taught to you or school was happening for you that didn't align? Were there specific things you could be like, yeah, these were the things in class or the way I was being treated as a student that didn't in line with my way of being?
For sure. I would say there's a disconnection from what I was being taught and how this makes sense in a broader way. Mm-hmm. Why am I learning this? Mm-hmm. And what is it for? Mm-hmm. Why do I need to know these formulas? And so actually what I did get into was economics.
Really?
Yeah, I majored in economics, actually.
What? Okay, that's a big plot twist I was not expecting.
Yeah, and because the logic of it appealed to me at that time, this makes sense. Now, I did all of that, and my opinion changed dramatically of it. Mm-hmm. But what I needed was a broader context for what I was learning. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I came back to math quite recently by studying sacred geometry.
Oh my God, tell us more.
So I like to embroider things.
Okay.
And so I one day was in Uluwatu and I embroidered a simple pattern of 4 circles. And it's a sacred geometry pattern, a very basic one. And I didn't know why I was doing it. I just did it when I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I went to a bookshop and there was a book and it had the flower of life on it. And I said, oh, perhaps that's for me. And I flipped it open to a page and the first word that I saw was the word Coptic.
Okay.
Doesn't matter what the word is about, but the word Coptic had been repeating in my head for about 3 months prior.
And you had never heard that word?
No, I had no association with it at all.
Wow.
And I was curious because when things come in this way, it usually is like a little wink, a flag, something to pay attention to. And so I knew when I saw this word, like, that is the association. That was the intuitive association. And I knew the book was for me. And so The Flower of Life is probably the first book to bring sacred geometry to humanity again.
Okay, so I want to hear, like, what is sacred geometry?
So sacred geometry is what underlies our experience of reality. The Flower of Life pattern is said to hold every possibility of experience within it. And you can derive any geometry from the Flower of Life. And so this was kind of, for me, a re-entry into the world of mathematics, because I said, oh, this is something that makes sense to me. I want to know how math relates to experience.
Ooh, I'm getting like such goosebumps. There's so much exploding in my mind. Keep going. Sorry to interrupt. Go, go, go.
I think that's it, really. Well, I mean,
I love it.
Something about
Oh my God.
So relating to geometry in an intuitive way, you can learn so much by drawing sacred geometry figures, and you don't need anything to do it. You make a straight line, and if you can make a circle, you're away to the races. You don't need anything else. It's obvious what to do, and in the doing of it, I find my energy becomes very elevated.
Right.
It's meditating, but it's tuning into a greater field, because this is what creates our experience.
I'm having a moment of going back to your younger self being like, I need to learn the context. Like, why am I learning this stuff? I need to learn the context. And actually, we talk about this a lot in math education, of being like, students need to know why they're doing something and how to apply things to real life. But what I'm kind of hearing now, and I don't want to project, so let me know if this is what I'm hearing, is it wasn't necessarily that you needed to know, like, I need to use this formula when I calculate like the distance between blah, blah, blah. You more wanted like a purpose of the math, like a deeper meaning. Like, it didn't have to be like, I can apply this formula to something. It sounds like you're like, I wanted this connected to my human experience.
Yeah.
Which is so fucking mind-blowing, because it's like, I do think we miss the boat a bit when we're like, all we need to do is create a math problem like with watermelons, or like, you know, we're calculating like how many TV shows this kid watches. That's relevant. Whereas I've always believed that kids, even though they're kids, they, you know, when we look at the blue zones and what gives people meaning, often it is purpose, it is meaning, it is like a deeper, more intangible thing, like a connection to our real lived human experience on the planet. And that doesn't always come in the material. You know, sometimes it does come in the spiritual realm. So you kind of like, I kind of even want to know a little more, when you're kind of talking about sacred geometry and how that spoke to you so much. Because I also think the word spirituality gets a bit of a bad rap. You know, we're kind of like, oh, spirituality, woo woo. But what I'm hearing from you is spirituality is connected to my lived experience as a human and its deeper meaning.
Absolutely. And for me, it's simply an exploration. Spirituality is me connecting to parts of me that are unseen, but incredibly potent. What said the word Coptic to me and led me to that book?
Right.
That's an interesting question.
And I love that, like that curiosity, that wonder, that awe, which is so ironically what we're always wanting our students to feel in math class, but then we're delivering the content to them in a way that shuts that down.
Yeah, it's true. It's when you have a room full of 12 students, though, it'll be interesting to see what lights one child up versus another. And somebody may be really interested in sacred geometry, but someone else might really want to know how this relates to how many watermelons to buy.
Totally, yeah.
What's happening in the stock market and what have you. So I think, though, not having math as an abstraction is important. That's how it felt to me. It felt disconnected from everything when I was presented with it.
And Okay, so thinking about it in that way, it's also so funny that you said a room of 12 students, because now teachers have literally 35 to 40 students in a classroom. It's so wild. Yeah. I was like, 12 students, that sounds like a dream.
Totally.
But I think that's really important, is that idea of student-centeredness, of being like, what, we're not all the same. The things that give us purpose and meaning are actually very different. You know, again, it doesn't always have to be connected to this very deep spiritual thing, but this idea of what gives us meaning and purpose, and how, because the way you're talking about it, math already is that. We don't have to force it to be that. It is a deeper thing. It does connect to everything that's important to us and to our experience, but we need to find a way to present it that way to the people we're teaching. And we need to find a way for students to feel that. And I wonder, like, a lot of this, again, ties into what I'm hearing from you is intuition. You know, when you saw that word Coptic, you intuitively picked up that book. You know, you started drawing those circles. Someone wasn't like, hey, Rebecca, here's an assignment, draw these circles. You were just exploring and playing. And I wonder, how could we empower teachers to tap into their intuition when they're teaching something? And then the second part, I'm just going to ask you both at once, is like, is there a tool or something they could teach their students in terms of how to tap into their intuition when they're learning math? Like, how does intuition come to play in the classroom?
I think intuition serves on a moment-to-moment basis.
Love. Yeah.
And in its purest sense, it's a yes or a no.
Whoa.
And it comes not from evaluating which math we're evaluating, but it's coming from another place. I literally will ask my heart if I'm curious about which path to take.
Mm-hmm. So can we like play out a scenario? Like, you're solving a math problem, let's say. Like, you're given a math problem, and for most students, what happens is they see the math problem and they don't know how to do it. They can't remember the formula. They're like, I don't remember learning this. And because so many students do have a deep math trauma and are coming from a fear space, like, that's the end of it, right? So how could we guide a student with math anxiety using intuition through just approaching that problem with intuitive curiosity? So, like, I'm giving you a math problem and you have no idea how to solve it. What would you do?
I think that I would encourage students to remember that it is not only logic that solves problems.
Oh my God, I love it.
It is not the data processing that you have done so far in life that you can exclusively rely on. First of all, there is a higher knowing that you have access to. There's a part of yourself that already knows the answer. Now, going into a public school in Canada and saying this kind of thing would be an interesting experience, but why not? Do we want to change what we're doing or not?
Yeah.
So perhaps it could be an exploration.
And then I think too, like, I don't think you're like saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're not like, I could give a grade 4 kid a calculus problem and they know how to solve the problem and they know the answer. But like, are you more kind of saying like, there's a higher knowing, there's a part of themselves that might very really have a gut instinct of at least the next question to ask?
Absolutely. And how do you listen to it? Well, then you need to be quiet. Close your eyes, perhaps. Give the child the teenager a breathing exercise. Something simple, something that calms. What is going to be calming? And ask them to listen. Just listen. And they may get a nudge of some kind, however it'll work for them. It could be a word, it could be a remembrance, it could be an image. And then they can follow that and say, wait, okay, and then proceed in this way. Well, what happened with me in high school is that I would be so nervous. It was performative. Who am I if I get it wrong? Right? And that gets in the way of remembering anything.
100%. You know, so many students actually do know the answer. They do know, I used to be like this when my math anxiety would pop up in tests where I'd intuitively start doing something and then my brain would kind of get in the way and be like, no, erase that. Like, wait, like maybe it would, it would go into this really cerebral place and it would turn out that my intuitive answer was the right one, but I had ignored it to be like, I should be doing this and this kind of thing. So what's also interesting, I think, and I've been working a lot on with my therapist is like, how do we know the difference? Like, we have these students who are coming from a fear space. They are anxious around math. these questions are popping up. Who am I if I get it wrong? And that shuts them down. How do we discern the difference? This is a big question, right? But what's a tip to discern the difference between fear and intuition? So a student who's, for example, like, my intuition is telling me not to try this because like something horrible is going to happen, versus being able to be like, that's just fear. That's not like a deep inner knowing. That's like or I don't know if I'm wording that correctly, but you know what I mean? Like how do we do that?
So this is something I've been exploring, I would say, for 10 years.
And that shows like it takes work, right? Because we're not conditioned that way.
It is. What is, am I in a picture right now? A picture being a moment in time where I had a negative experience and I'm trying to protect myself again from that experience.
Oh my God, I love that.
Or am I connected to something else? And normally, if you are in a space of fear as you're speaking, oh my God, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do this. That's not your intuition speaking. That is you doing your best to protect yourself from having a negative experience again. And intuition often is direct, clear, soft, and it's very often the first thing that comes in your mind before you evaluate it. It's the drop in. It's the thing you receive. And then, you know, that part of us that says, well, yes, no, maybe, pros and cons and historical experiences. That's not intuition. That's mechanical.
I really love this because I think one of the things that kind of comes up in a broader cultural sense is this idea that certain of us have math ability and certain don't. But again, we are all born with, you know, there really is no scientific studies to back that up. Like there's no like brain scans being like, some people have these, you know, whatever. And the idea that I really think intuition could be a tool into like actually allowing everyone to tap into their natural curiosity, their natural sense of like question asking and creative thinking and, you know, are recognizing that so much of what we do in life is tied to this beautiful math. It's just not necessarily evaluated in the classroom, which to me is just proof and evidence that we have mathematical intuition. And I think maybe, because I love the idea of being like, here's a problem, you know, you put this in front of a student, here's a problem you have no idea how to solve. First instinct, what would you do? Like, just like, you know what I mean? Don't even think about it too much. What would you do? Now, the likelihood is a lot of times that will happen and it will be the quote unquote wrong thing to do. Let's say, right? Like sometimes it won't lead to the intended outcome that the teacher has or the answer. And I actually think that's a really good exercise to be like, even if it doesn't lead you there, that's okay. And that's part of the process. But how would you frame that for a student who's, you know, we're constantly told in math class that the goal is to get a right answer. Yeah. That's a good like reframe of this, because I really like this idea.
The goal is to have an experience. How about that?
Ooh.
It's to be in the experience of the unknown. So is math really the outcome here? Or is it learning to trust yourself when you don't know what to do? Getting a right answer, sure, that's a nice outcome. But if that is immediately the concern, then it's restrictive. You've put a boundary around the situation. So if you can make the focus as well on it's okay to not know and to listen and to breathe and to ask for help, then there's a different energy around it. And what do I learn when I get it wrong? Does it matter? Maybe I've learned something.
Yeah.
Maybe I've had the experience of seeing myself be in fear and then get it wrong. And then I'm okay on the other side of it.
Yes. Oh, I love the way you're putting this, because I do, you know, that's such a big part of my work through math therapy is this idea of even like, you know, practicing doing things that you're probably not going to get the intended outcome, like getting into that space. And I really love the tie-in that you're making between intuition. It's that, you know, if you have an intuitive gut instinct, which is so hard for us to listen to, just listening to it more. And I'm just even imagining like, because I'm imagining someone being like, okay, I keep listening to my gut, but it's always like, you know, it's never leading me to the answer, but that there is learning in that, you know, and that learning of being able to tune into your gut, being able to tune into your intuition is always going to get you closer to action. And action is better than the stagnant place of fear and freeze, right?
Sure.
Like, am I onto something?
I think you definitely are. Because what creates the stagnation is the fear of failure.
Yeah.
Well, why does it matter? Mm-hmm. Like, okay, well, I've got to get a B or an A to get into college. Well, that matters. Okay, but are we in a learning process right now? The future-oriented concerns, that's what creates the anxiety, and that's what will constrict the moment. And so the learning process being more spacious, I think, is crucial. So to move into a situation with curiosity, I think, is everything. I like to paint and make art. And sometimes I get caught up in thinking, well, what do people want? What will sell? What will they be interested in? And immediately my creativity has walls around it. That's a future concern.
Could not be more relatable to me as a musician. Keep going.
Sure.
I need this talk.
Yeah. And so do you make something novel and of you, of your essence in that moment? Or are you making something that's probably going to be similar to what's already been made because that feels safe?
Oh my God. This could not be more applicable to math. Like, could not be more. Because again, when we're in school, we're not doing it for ourselves often. We're doing it for the teacher in the room or for the adult or for the grade. And we're trying to be like, we say a lot in math that up till now, most students are taught how to mimic. Like, you're taught how to mimic, not how to think, right? Like, do it this way, right? It's called like, I do, you do from the teacher. And you're right. Like, there are immediately walls around that.
For sure. And it stifles the creativity of problem solving. I mimicked my way through college. I got an economics degree. And, I would go to stats class and be like, what the hell is this? And memorize the formulas, do it in a test and be like, this is bullshit. This isn't anything.
Yeah.
You can fudge any statistic.
Yeah.
But some students may not take the questioning that far. They may just mimic their way through and then at some point wonder, well, where am I? Where am I in any of this? So if at an earlier point it can be beyond the rote memorization of something, then I think you're going to unlock more in a student.
Oh, this is beautiful. Did you at any point, when you were going through your own school experience, did you feel like you were incapable of doing math? Like, did you?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I would look at something and I would feel a crunch in my mind or a confusion or a reaching for what's the right thing. What did I do last time? And I don't quite remember it. And I would be so nervous that I would be cut off from even my access to what we had learned in class. And I would be frustrated. Therefore, I wouldn't study. And therefore, I would keep showing up in a way that was not fulfilling at all. It was totally fear-based. And so had my learning been in a different environment, things could have been very different. Not only, math as a concept, what is this, but am I approaching it from fear or am I approaching it with curiosity?
Okay, a couple more. We're reaching. I mean, I could talk to you for 1,000 hours. This is so fascinating. Okay, there's another big thing I want to talk about. And I know this is going to seem kind of in the weeds for some of our listeners, but everyone listening to this knows how much I love astrology. And one of the things that drew me to you is that you study Vedic astrology, and you mentioned that you really believe that astrology played a role in your own math experience and in the way you were relating to math when you were younger. Can you just tell us a little bit about that? And tell us what Vedic astrology is first, a little brief snippet.
Sure. Vedic astrology is a system of astrology. It came from India, and it can help us to understand ourselves in any given moment. It's like understanding what's happening with the weather, but your internal weather.
I love that.
And there's something called the Hermetic principle, as above, so below.
I have that tattoo to my arm.
Yeah.
Oh my God, thanks. Stop. Okay, yes. Love.
So I think that's the basis of astrology. You're like, what the hell does Jupiter have to do with anything? It's over there. Well, maybe Jupiter is also inside. In the realm of science, there's increasingly an understanding that life is coming from us. It's not happening out here. It's coming from us. So astrology is a way to get inside.
Okay.
And say what's happening outside is also what's happening inside. I'm related to the cosmos.
I love that. And so tell me a bit about looking back now, we've heard about your journey through math and what was happening in school, how you've kind of been able to reflect on that from that perspective.
Right. So in Vedic astrology, you can look at different parts of your life and see dominant energies taking place at different times in your life. And you can look at your chart to see this. And as I was learning Vedic astrology, I looked back and I saw these different chapters of my life and how different strengths or challenges emerged over time. And so during a certain phase, I was very, very strong in math. And then it changed to another phase, which was more challenging in my life. And I could see how math became utterly difficult for me, confusing. Essentially, the self-confidence changed.
Like literally your relationship with it.
It did. I was no longer confident in math, and I didn't understand why I was learning it. I questioned it, and I struggled to connect with it. And I could see through looking at my chart why that was, which is an interesting thing to do. That's an interesting part of astrology, is you get to understand this system. It's actually called the Vedic mathematics.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a system of probabilities, essentially, based on an understanding of different energies, what is more likely to occur during a period of time or not. Now, we have free will within that, but we can say that there are certain impressions that happen on the mind at a certain period of time, and that will impact how you live out your life. And so I saw my math journey in what I've learned so far.
Wow. And not to get into the nitty gritty, even though I want to, this particular thing just had to do with the moon phase you were in and the Mars phase you were in.
That's right. So the moon in my chart is very happy. It's in a good position. It likes where it is. It's exalted. The moon is the mind. Also, it represents the mind.
Okay.
And so I was excelling in school, very, very good at math, very good at everything. Good. You know?
Good. She's using air quotes, everyone.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
from this way that we like to judge children.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the chapter, it was a new chapter, and this one was ruled by Mars, which in my chart, Mars is challenged. It's not in a place that is particularly comfortable. In my particular chart, Mars is also associated with the mind. And so things became less clear
Okay.
to me.
It's so interesting because I know we're talking about astrology and we love it. And we all have different belief systems and different tools of reflection or religions or spiritual manifestations, like whatever. It's, we have the things that help us feel anchored in the world. But what I honestly think is so interesting is like, you're literally just talking about phases of your life, and you're using astrology to understand them. For all of us, we've got to recognize that the students that we are teaching are all in different phases of their lives, whether it's astrologically or like more rooted in the material world or like hormonally or mentally or emotionally, like they're all in these different phases. And what I'm really hearing too is that like, we've got to honor that. We have to honor that. And I wonder if there is a piece, because it's so hard for a teacher with, for however many students in a room to tap into what every single student is going through and what they need, like how your teacher could have been like, Rebecca's in a Mars phase, like, you know what I mean? Like, but I'm actually wondering, as kind of a final question, we're talking so much about student intuition. Is there a way teachers might be able to use their intuition to tap into what a student needs? So often we're frustrated because a student, we can tell they're in anxiety. We can tell they're not feeling good. They have an unhealthy relationship with math and we don't know how to, we've used all our tools and we don't know how to navigate that. Would you have any like tip for teachers of how to quickly, or not quickly, how to even begin to tap into a gut feeling of what a student might need?
Well, we're talking about pressure and performance, both for the teacher and the student.
Yeah.
I got to get this done. Shit, I got to learn this versus peace. And so can a teacher with 30 to 40 students in the class, I know there's a lot going on, can they show up in a way that is loving in a moment and create a space that's coming a little more from the heart? You can literally just picture the heart, or take a few moments to do that before starting. Is it possible to take a few moments to breathe with the students?
With the class,
and say, this is an exploration we're going on together. This isn't who you are.
Yes.
Your test score is not who you are. This is a way for you to get to know yourself and to get to know the world.
Clapping over here, everyone. Yes. I love that. And I also can't help but think, I love how you said pressure to perform for the teacher as well. And I know that so many incredible teachers they just want to be doing their best. They want students to feel good. And I actually really think that what you're saying, coming at it from a place of love for themselves as well, like giving themselves that self-compassion to say, today I'm just getting up here. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to tap into my heart center and teach from that place. Will probably be really healing and peaceful for them as well.
For sure. And I think remembering that not everything is up to them, and not everything is meant to go perfectly for every individual.
Yeah.
There's lots to be learned through failure.
Yeah.
That may be what someone is choosing to experience at that time, and there's a greater, broader reason for it that has an impact later in life.
I believe that.
And so it's not all up to you as the teacher at all, but to create an environment where people can have the experience that they're meant to have.
In like a loving way.
Exactly.
Oh my God. I love that. Yeah. I think that's so important. My mantra for Bali has been, as I let go of the need to control my life, abundance flows easily and effortlessly to me and those around me. And it's funny, I've even started realizing how much I'm trying to control things that I can't, and that I shouldn't. And I really love that, because I think teachers really, they want to give so much, and to really recognize we can't control everything. We can give and receive, but that's it. Okay, so before we wrap up, this has been just an incredible interview, so different from the ones I've had, but a conversation I really always wanted to have, and you're just so wise and coming from a place that I think is really useful. So many of us don't get to hear that perspective. It was really healing for me even to just kind of feel like we do have an inner knowing, and curiosity and wonder are their goal for students, but also for teachers and for us as humans. So there are 2 questions I always ask all my guests, so I'm going to fire them at you.
Ready.
All right. Question number 1. If there was one thing you could change about the way math is taught in schools, what would it be?
Love. That's it. To make it not a space of performance, but a space of love, which is fundamentally going to lead to a better outcome. Can we be in wonder and sweetness with this?
Sweetness. I love this. I love you. Okay, amazing. And then my final question is, if someone was chatting with you and they were like, yeah, I get everything you're saying about intuition and we know, but I'm just not a math person, what would you say?
I would be curious to know what a math person means to them. What does it mean to be a math person? To be really good at memorizing formulas, to be good at acing tests, to be good at adding up your grocery bill? Like, what does that mean? Do people think you're good at math? Because it's what is this goal in mind? That would be interesting. And to say there may be some way that you can experience math that feels really cool and fun to you.
Yeah,
and maybe you can find out what that is.
Oh, I love it. So such a you answer to respond to that question with a question about the person, right? Like, I think it's great. And sometimes that asking instead of telling is what brings out of that person what their deep math trauma is and how it can be healed.
What do they believe about themselves?
What do they believe? Yeah. Oh my God. This has been amazing. Amazing. Our first interview ever in Bali. Like, honestly, you're such a treat. Thank you for taking the time. Do you want people to find you anywhere? Like, do you have Insta? Do you have social media?
I do, where I post highly irregularly, so I don't know how interesting it would be for them.
Okay,
so
no problem. We'll just leave you as this mysterious, intuitive woman on the podcast.
Perfect.
Find Rebecca in the cosmos, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, and you're doing incredible work. Truly, it's a gift to make a space where people can talk about this, and so that people can have a more honest experience of math and themselves.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Should we hug?
Yeah.
Oh my God, we've never.
Oh,
Thank you so much. Oh my God. Oh, I'm not saying bye. No need. She's right here.
the end.
I mean, can we just take a second to breathe that all in? If this episode sparked something for you, I mean, maybe it reminded you that your intuition matters, or maybe it made you think about your own math journey in a new way, share it. I guarantee that someone you know needs to hear this message today as much as you did. So send it to a friend, post it to your story, or just DM me and let me know what resonated. I'm on Instagram @The Math Guru, and I'm always up for a chat about sacred geometry, student joy, or what it means to be a math person. And hey, if you're loving the pod, a quick 5-star review helps me reach more people and keep these convos going. Now, for next week, I have something truly special for you guys. When I was in Bali, I was doing yoga like every day, searching for meaning, blah, 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 as one does. And one day my yoga teacher pulled me aside and said, hey, I know you do this math therapy stuff. My girlfriend Charisma is terrified of math. Like, she cries at the sight of numbers kind of thing. Can you help her? Well, for the next couple of weeks, Charisma and I went through some intense math therapy, and she was brave enough to sit down with me on the mic to share her experience. I know I exaggerate a lot, but I'm actually serious that my time getting to know Charisma was one of the most absolute highlights of my work in math education, and I learned as much from her as she did from me. So I can't wait to share her story with you next week. Now, one more thing before you go. As I said at the start of this episode, we have big things in store. Okay, are you ready? I'm actually so excited. As of this fall, we will officially be a weekly podcast. That means new episodes every week, guys. So I want to hear from you. If there's anyone you want me to interview, any episode ideas you have, any topics you want me to explore, DM me on Instagram, email me at vanessa@themathguru.ca. I want to hear from you because this podcast is for you guys. Math Therapy is produced and edited by David Kochberg, and that lovely music you're hearing is by my band, Goodnight Sunrise. See you guys next week, and until then, go be curious, go be kind, and go be your best math therapist self for a friend, student, colleague, or even just for you, because you deserve it.